Hi, folks. I'm Bob Benny,
I'm Jesse Thompson.
and we're with Bob Benny Wealth Management. And we want to welcome you this noon, Thursday at noon, for this month's podcast. I call it a Bobcast. It's about our topic is who wants to be a millionaire. And Jesse and I are wealth advisors with Bob Benny Wealth Management. We want to talk about go ahead and tell them how we're going to talk about this, Jess.
Before I do that, if you have any questions while we're going through everything, you can type those in. There should be a box at the bottom of your screen, and we'll wait till the end to go over any questions. But a little bit of background. So we are going to talk about the qualities that make a millionaire. And what we found out in our experience, Dad, of course, has more than me. How many years?
29. You have?
About 10. In our experience working with wealthy people, of kind of their habits and what they're like and how they made their wealth. And then we're also going to cite, if you know me and you've watched any of these webinars, I always like to have some studies and facts and stats and things like that. So where I'm getting these from is a study that was recently done by Dave Ramsey, and it was the biggest study that's ever been done on millionaires. It was done on 10,000 millionaires. So some of our facts are going to come from that. Some of our data will come from that. And then also I've been reading this book that I would highly suggest to everybody called The Millionaire Next Door. And the book is pretty old. It was written, I think, in the 90s, but all the concepts in the book still are true. And basically how the book started is it started as a study of wealthy individuals. And the writer of the book, how he went about the study was he went and he surveyed people in wealthy neighborhoods, or like fancy neighborhoods with big houses and all that stuff, assuming that the people that live in those fancy neighborhoods would be high net worth, or they would be wealthy people. Well, what was interesting and what he found was that was not the case. Those people were high income and they made a lot of money, but a lot of them didn't have a lot of wealth. And so kind of what the book goes through is people who are actually wealthy, not just high income. Basically, they aren't who you think that they are. And that's kind of what we found in our experience too, is that a lot of people who are actually wealthy don't live like they're wealthy.
They're not showing off.
They live very modestly, and they don't live high consumption lifestyles is probably the biggest commonality that we've seen. But we're going to go through 5 different things, qualities that we found that millionaires have, that are things that you can do as well to increase your wealth. But first, since this is Who Wants to Be a Millionaire, we are going to play a little game.
Oh boy.
And obviously just participate from where you are, obviously. Okay.
Who wants to be a millionaire?
We have 2 questions regarding millionaires. Here's the first one. For 1 million fake dollars, which of these is one of the top 5 careers of millionaires?
A doctor surgeon, A. B, a dentist, C, a teacher, or D, a pilot. Wow.
Okay. So
That's
guess
hard.
in your own head.
Guess in your own head.
All right. 3 of these are very high income jobs, right? But actually only one of them is right, and that's teacher. So the top 5 careers of millionaires from the Ramsey study are actually engineer. That one's not that surprising. Accountant, teacher, management position in a company, or an attorney. So
notice doctors are not on there. You would think doctors would be on there.
There's a lot of high income
earners
careers that aren't on there. Doctors, lots of people who are in finance.
Yeah.
Social media influencers.
Jesse was mentioning about this guy that did this study or tried to do the study starting for the Millionaire Next Door book by going to the rich neighborhoods and looking for wealthy people there. When Jesse was younger, she's my daughter, for those of you that don't already know. when she was younger, the neighborhood we lived in, I'm not going to say what it is, but it was one of the wealthiest neighborhoods in Lincoln. We got a good deal on a house, bought the cheapest house in the neighborhood. And many of our neighbors were frankly wealthy, or not wealthy, but high income earning doctors that didn't have a whole lot of wealth. They made whatever, $300,000 a year and spent 350. And so
see the big contrast between wealth and income.
right.
Okay, so let's move on to our second. Who wants to be a
For the
millionaire
second
question?
myth, yeah, this
Get ready.
we're still playing the game.
Yes, we're still playing the game. One more question of the game. For 1 million more fake dollars. What percentage of millionaires are self-made, meaning they didn't inherit any of their wealth? 37%, 18%, 56%, or 79%?
Wow. I bet it's probably real, even though I know the answer, I bet most people would say it's just a small percent, like 37%. But what's the right answer, Jess?
The right answer is 79% of millionaires didn't even receive $1 of inheritance. So 79% of them are completely self-made. Actually, only, let me see, I have the stat on here. Only 1% of millionaires received $1 million or more in inheritance. Yeah. So most millionaires are not who you would think. And the good news about this is that becoming a millionaire is attainable for normal, regular people. But that doesn't mean that it's easy.
And I want to throw out a little caveat here. Being a millionaire these days isn't as big of a deal as it was 20 years ago. But the concept is still the same. There's a lot of people now that are millionaires that wouldn't have been 20 years ago just because of the value of their house and some things like that. But the concepts that we're talking about that we've learned from watching wealthy people, we're talking about just overall wealthy people, not just millionaires. Some of our large clients many of our large clients are multi-millionaires. But this is what we're trying to talk about is how they became that wealthy.
Okay. So let's talk about the formula for wealth. This is something that I love that you always say.
Yeah, I thought I made this up, but I probably didn't make it up. I probably didn't make it up. But I tell people a lot of times, and particularly young people, a lot of the people that come into our office are already wealthy and we're helping them. And we help them continue to stay wealthy and get wealthier. They're, retirement age or pre-retirement. But sometimes we have, some young people come in and need some help. And we always try to help everybody that comes in here. And I tell the young people that are just trying to figure things out, there's a formula for accumulating wealth. And it just has two elements in it. One is the discipline to save the money rather than spend it. And the other is the wisdom to invest it wisely. And Jesse and I, can't give anybody the discipline to save the money rather than spend it. They have to learn that. They have to, maybe they already have learned it, but they have to get that themselves. But where we come in is as investment professionals, giving them the wisdom on how to invest it wisely and grow it safely.
So we're going to talk about 5 essential components for building wealth today.
So the first essential thing for building wealth is to live below your means. Don't get on the treadmill of earning and consuming. 75% of millionaires never carried a credit card balance. 94% live on less than what they make. I guess that other 6% are people that inherited some money. But only a third of the millionaires in the 10,000 that Dave Ramsey studied average making over $100,000 a year. And my dear grandpa, he's long gone, Grandpa Peachy, your great grandpa, he used to say, Bobby, because my dad's name was Bob too, so in the family my name was Bobby. and he would give me wisdom, and he would say, Bobby, doesn't matter how much you make. What matters is how much you spend. And, you know, Grandpa wasn't ever what you'd call a rich person, but he came from being absolutely dirt poor to having a nice life and a nice paid off house, and not super wealthy or anything like that, but he raised his family and you know, started my dad and my uncles and aunts on their way. And but it's not about how much you make, it's about how much you spend. Meaning that if you spend more than you make or spend all you make, you're never going to have anything. You have to spend less than what you make.
And so most of the millionaires, or the highly wealthy people that we work with, and the people in these studies, have an attitude of saving instead of an attitude of consuming. So I think a lot of people that want to look rich have this attitude of consuming, but those are the people who actually don't actually have any wealth. So most of the people who we have worked with that are very wealthy, a lot of them live in really modest homes, and they'll pull up and they drive a car that you would never expect someone who has that much money to drive. They would usually, they're used vehicles. Most wealthy people in that Millionaire Next Door book buy cars that are between 3 and 5 years old. They hardly ever buy brand new cars, and they rarely drive luxury cars unless they buy them used.
Right, right.
So being financially independent requires a level of organization. It's kind of like anything. If you want to achieve something, you have to have a plan of how to get there. And you have to have the long goal, right? And then you have to have short-term goals that can get you to the long goal. And it's the same thing with money. And so you have to set near and long-term goals, and you have to figure out how much you need to save in order to get to those goals every month. And then you have to organize your finances so that you have a plan for how much to spend in each category. A lot of people might not think that millionaires live on a budget, but they do. They have a plan and know how much their family spends in each spending category, you know, housing, groceries, clothes, all of those things. And they usually plan them out ahead of time for the year and track their spending. And the majority of millionaires actually even use a grocery list, which is an interesting statistic. So you'd think that people that have a lot of money aren't as worried about that kind of thing, but that's why they have
a lot of money because they pay attention to it. They pay attention to their spending.
Yep.
You know, one of the things that I've also noticed in our clients, you know, because we have lots of generational clients where, you know, we started out with the parents, and then, became their kids. They passed away, and their kids became our clients, and now even grandkids. Mm-hmm. And sometimes some of this, even here in Lincoln, Nebraska, sometimes when people inherit wealth, oftentimes when people inherit wealth, they don't appreciate it and manage it as well as their parents. And so, for instance, one of the things that we see sometimes negatively affecting the wealth of people, particularly those, I'm thinking of some clients that have their wealth is inherited. Now, obviously, I'm not going to say their name, but their wealth is inherited, and they're just getting sucked dry by kids and grandkids. Mm-hmm. And so, you know, one of the things that millionaires do is they have a healthy attitude about money, and know that giving money unnecessarily to children or grandchildren and not letting them earn it and save it themselves isn't good for them. So one of the things is don't become a cash cow for children or grandchildren. Mm-hmm. So,
yeah, and an interesting fact to go along with that is that with generational wealth, by the second generation, 70% of wealthy families, by the second generation, there's nothing left. 90% by the third generation, there's nothing left. Yeah. So that's crazy. Yeah.
And then the one other thing that's not even really on our plan that I've noticed over the 29 years I've been in this business and helping people get wealthy and stay wealthy, is that most of the people that we have that I know that are wealthy are big givers. They give to their church, they give to charities, they give to people. They are not stingy with their money. And you know, that's biblical. You know, it talks about in the Bible, in the book of Malachi, about bring the whole tithe into the storehouse, and see if I won't pour out so much blessing on you that you don't know what to do with it, so to speak. That's Bob's paraphrasing. But
So
anyway,
they're not about consuming a lot of their money for themselves, but they're gracious towards.
but in what I've
other
seen
people
with
and
people, these people that I'm thinking of that are big givers, wealthy people that are also big givers, is God keeps giving them more money. And the more they give away, the more they get. And that's been my own personal experience as well. So now we're on essential element number 2.
All right.
Save regularly. It matters less how much you make than what you do with it.
So 8 out of 10 millionaires invested in their company's 401k, and I would assume probably the 2 out of 10, probably their company didn't have a 401k and they're saving personally in a different type of account.
Right.
If you are offered a retirement plan at work, you got to take a full advantage of that and max that thing out, especially if most employers are going to have like some kind of a match. You got to at least hit the match, and you can invest way more money in a 401k plan than you can in like
your own IRA,
your own private retirement account. And that money is not taxed to you in that year, which is another thing we're going to talk about in a little bit. So you got to take full advantage if you have a work retirement plan and 401k.
That's especially a great thing for a young person that's trying to get started out, because then that they never see the money. They don't have to make the decision, should I spend this or save it, which sometimes is a hard decision. Instead, you know, they're going to get a check for this much, or they earn this much, and this is how much their check is. But because they've got 10% or whatever going to their 401k, this is how much they get to spend.
Mm-hmm.
And so it ends up being a lot of money too.
That's a great method for saving if you are somebody who is more inclined to be a spender than a saver, because I know that different people are more inclined towards different things.
Yeah.
And different personality types and stuff like that. If you're a spender, just have the money come right off the top right when you get paid and go automatically into whether it's your 401k or whether it's some kind of savings account that you have opened up. Just have that, take care of yourself that way and have that done automatically so that you don't have to be tempted to spend it.
So we have a slide that's going to show how much this compounds, don't we? And that's your next one, Jess?
Yeah, so I just want to show the power of saving regularly and compounded interest. Okay, so as an example, if you save $6,000 a year in an investment account that makes an average of 8% interest, which if you invest in like just a simple S&P 500 index fund, 8% would be like a pretty average.
It's a conservative expectation. That would be it's a reasonable expectation of what you could earn for a rate of return. In 35 years, you'll have over $1 million. That's just $6,000 a year for 35 years.
Yeah, and $6,000 a year, you can invest more than that in a 401, way more than that in a 401k, especially with an employer match. Yeah. But that's not even the limit for a IRA. So if you just max out an IRA every year, by the time you retire, you're going to be sitting really good if you invest it properly. Yeah.
So if you were a 25-year-old just out of college, get a decent job, and started saving that $6,000 a year, by the time you're 60, you're going to have $1 million at 8%, and maybe more if it grows a little bit better than 8%. So it's totally doable. It's more important about time than trying to time in the market, the amount of time you invest money in consistently saving, than it is trying to hit a home run. None of our clients, by the way, became millionaires by hitting home runs.
Right. And another thing that I just want to hit on really quick on this chart, why I put this on here, is that this like turquoise line, this is your contributions. So the amount of money that you're putting in, this is the $6,000 a year every year. This red line is how much the account is growing because of compounding interest if you invest it properly. That's ginormous. So don't just like put away money in the bank thinking that you're saving it. You got to be investing it properly. So
Ginormous.
ginormous.
All right.
Okay, so a quick rule of thumb, if you're wondering kind of, well, how much should I be saving if I want to be wealthy? Well, we always tell people that the minimum amount that you should be saving is 10% of your gross income. Wealthy people that were surveyed said that they end up saving 15 to 20% of their gross.
But it just kind of works. I tell this to young people all the time. As soon as you get out, get into the workforce and stuff like that, if you can discipline yourself and set yourself up to be where you're saving 10% per year of your income, by the time you retire, that will create a retirement account large enough that you can take retirement income out of it that will sustain the same amount of lifestyle that you've had as you've gone up, because you've obviously reduced your spending from spending all of your check to only spending 90% of it.
Mhm.
So anyway.
Yep, and so like we said, this doesn't mean saving and banking cash. Holding large amounts of cash actually diminishes wealth over time because of inflation. So you think that you're saving, putting away money, but really the value of your money, the buying power of it is going down if you don't have it invested properly. So wealthy people hold enough cash in the bank for an emergency fund and usually invest the balance. And if you're wondering about how much you need to have for an emergency fund, it's 3 to 6 months of expenses. So not 3 to 6 months of what income you're making now necessarily, but 3 to 6 months of expenses. And for most people, that's going to be closer to 3, especially if you have dual income households. It'll be closer to 3%. If you just have one person working and say the other person is a stay-at-home parent, then you might need 6 months, but for most it's 3.
So our next essential element, number 3, is to be tax conscious. And millionaires minimize the amount of taxes they pay. They don't cheat on their taxes. The ones we know don't anyway, and I don't. But I sure minimize the amount of taxes I pay by following the rules and doing things like deferring income, like making contributions to IRAs or a 401k. Then you don't have to pay taxes on that money you earn because you put it in the IRA or the 401k. There's a number of different things that we can do, we all can do to minimize taxes.
A great way that you can help yourself out in the future to minimize taxes in the future and in retirement is invest in a Roth IRA. So you're going to pay money on the amount on what you put into a Roth IRA, what you contribute right now, but the growth of it is tax-free. And when you go to take money out after you're 59 and a half, all of the money and what you put in and the growth is going to be tax-free, completely tax-free to you. There's really like nothing like that that exists as far as an investment goes. So you can do yourself a huge favor for building wealth in the future and minimizing your tax situation in the future by maxing out a Roth IRA or utilizing, a lot of people have Roths in their 401ks now as well.
And there's a famous saying that is a wealth type saying: don't pay taxes on income you're not spending. Don't pay taxes on income you're not spending. And the person that was attributed that to is a Rockefeller. It's an over 100-year-old saying and he's long gone now, but have you ever heard of a guy named Rockefeller that wasn't rich? No, they're all rich. They're all rich because they're smart. Don't pay income on taxes you're not spending.
Taxes on
income you're not spending, I mean. And so it's the principle of compounding on money you would otherwise pay out in taxes.
Mm-hmm. You want to talk about?
Well, there's also another thing that wealthy people do is they use smart planning on transferring wealth to their heirs. For instance, they have they have a big capital asset like a farm that they have a big gain in. Say they bought the farm for $100,000 and it's now worth $500,000 and they're in their 80s. Rather than selling that farm with the big gain, capital gain that they got to pay taxes on, they hold that farm or other capital asset. And when they pass away, the $500,000 farm goes to their kids and nobody has to pay taxes on the gain. It's kind of it's called a step up in basis.
Mhm.
But wealthy people know those rules, or they hire people that help them know those rules. People like us or CPAs.
Yep, because you can do the same thing, of course, with like a home, but you can do the same thing with stocks as well, stocks that aren't in
Right.
a retirement account.
Another thing, most wealthy people, well, certainly all the wealthy people that we deal with have revocable living trusts so that they can avoid having to waste money on probate and estate attorneys at their death.
Okay, so
Number four, essential element number four is to invest wisely. Like I said before, the equation is don't spend all you earn and then invest that money wisely. And so the people that we know that are wealthy didn't get rich quick. The people we know that are rich didn't get rich quick. They didn't buy the hot stock. They didn't do the latest get rich quick scheme. They buy investments and hold them often for, it says up there that the studies have shown that 90% of high net worth people hold their stocks or their investments for longer than a year. Part of that is because they're patient, and part of it is because the taxes are less if you've owned something for over a year before you sell it. They have a long-term investment outlook.
yeah, and I just want to say they're also not trying to time the market. So they're not trying to get in and out of the market based on speculation of what they think the market's going to do, or, oh, we heard that this market crash was going to happen, or we're nervous or whatever, so we're going to get out and then we'll get back in when we feel better about it. They just get in, they invest in things that they know are valuable, and they stay in and they ride out ups and downs. And that's statistically, studies have been done that that's actually a way better outcome also for growth of your portfolio.
And people have heard of these people called day traders, where they just play the market daily and buy and sell.
They claim they make millions of dollars and they're mostly lying.
Well, most of them are lying, but sometimes they make money for a short period of time, but then reality catches up with them and they make a mistake and they lose it. And I've seen that happen over and over and over.
Yeah, we looked up one time the success rate of day traders after 1 year of how many of them had either broken even or not lost money, and it was like less than 1% or something. It was crazy. So
one last thing when we're talking about investing wisely that I wanted to throw in here, we don't have anything on the slide about it, but a great source of wisdom is always the Bible. And and I'm not going to go through and explain it or anything like that, but in the Bible, in the New Testament, in the book of Matthew, in chapter 25, it talks about the parable of the talents. And the talents is like money. Talent was a money back then. And if anybody wants to, you can look it up in your own Bible, look up the parable of the talents on Google, or look it up in the Bible in Matthew chapter 5. But that's kind of God's wisdom for investing money and not just burying the money and hiding it. God rewards prudent, wise investments. And so I just wanted to throw that in.
okay, and we're to our last thing, which is good because it's about time to finish up.
Yeah, we better hurry. So the last element is to outsource advice. Wealthy people outsource advice. Wealthy people, rather than trying to work on their car themselves, they hire a trustworthy and competent mechanic to work on their car. They hire attorneys, CPAs, financial advisors to outsource those kind of things that they're not experts at, to experts in their field, whether it be taxes or financial advice. Of course, that's what Jesse and I do, is give people financial advice, whether it be on investments or estate planning or retirement income planning or tax planning, that sort of thing.
All right, so we're gonna go over our 5 things here one more time. 5 essential components for building wealth. Number 1, live below your means.
Number 2, save regularly.
Number 3, be tax conscious.
Number 4, invest wisely.
And lastly, outsource advice when you're not an expert.
So we want to thank everybody for attending today's webinar, or Bobcast, I call it, podcast, whatever. Anyway, do we have any questions here, Jess? Did you notice?
Nope, I don't see any. If you think of any after this, you can always email
Us at bob@bobbenny.com or jesse@bobbenny.com, or call the office. We're here to help. If you have any feedback for us on today's presentation, we sure would appreciate it, to try to make it better and help us do better in the future. But we want to help people. We want to help you, whoever's watching today, your family or friends. Send them to us. We won't charge them. We just want to help people, whether that be with their investments, tax planning, estate planning, retirement income planning. That's what we do. We know some things that hopefully can be of help to you or your friends, and we'd love to help them.